What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Scale News Update. If you're not familiar with the show, this is where we talk about the news that happened in the world of scale RCs over the last week. Last week, we had a big week with a little bit of news and then some big introduction news to the world of Coppa, which is that Child Online Privacy Protection Act. And this week, we'll touch on that just a little bit at the very end, but just kind of a minor update as far as what's happened since the last week that we talked about it. But most importantly, let's get on to the news that pertains to RCs directly. First of all, Proline released a new Gladiator body. Finally, the first option for a Lexan Gladiator is on the market. Now, Proline released this and there was some immediate concerns, or even before they released it, the major concerns were that we saw that it was going to be for a 12.3 wheelbase, and just with the length and proportions of a full-size Gladiator, we're a little bit concerned about how it would scale down into that type of RC. And I think they did a decent enough job. There's some things that look a little off as far as like wheel openings, but really when you're trying to make a body that has to fit existing platforms as well as large tires up to 4.75 inch tall 1.9s, things just end up getting bigger, and it just how it works. I think they did a pretty decent job overall as far as trying to make it fit this type of platform about as good as they could do without kind of just changing the actual Gladiator itself, unless they took that 4-door and converted it to a 2-door, which getting the official Jeep licensing for probably wouldn't have happened then. But overall, I think this is a good option. I'm definitely going to pick one of those up, see how it looks and feels in person. In some news that no one expected to see, some HPI parts finally started to hit some dealers. Now, if you haven't been following, HPI, as you may have known it from the Savage or any of their other RS4s and the tons of other platforms that they had, went out of business several years ago, or went bankrupt, I should say. And they were bought at that time by a company called Ripmax. And they had them for a short amount of time. They finally got the HPI venture officially launched at the time, and only for a short time though. The venture, the sales weren't really there. There wasn't a very good supply of them. And then again, they went out of business. Now for the second time in just the last 3 or 4 years, they've been bought by another company. This one is called Vestergaard, and they were bought by this company months ago, maybe 6 months or more even, and really just hadn't seen anything since the initial post that said that they were going to work on the company and try and get parts and vehicles and things like that in stock. But we hadn't seen any real evidence of that actually happening until recently. It looks like some replacement or support parts had finally started to hit some dealers, as well as some popular tires like the Rovers from way back when, which are still desirable tires in the comp world. I've seen very little information on the parent company of HPI now. I tried to do a little bit of digging and just couldn't find much other than it saying that they're an importer of toys and craft hobby type stuff. Doesn't look like they're really huge into hobby grade RC. And from what I can tell, their website is Wittmax, WITTMAX.com. It only shows that they're a wholesaler and the lines that they carry. And there's a number of brands in there that are hobby grade brands, but it's pretty poorly set up website and you can't really see a whole lot. So at this point, it's kind of hard to say how much stake you put into this future success of HPI under this new umbrella. After this long, finally seeing some parts, we'll see as it goes here if we can kind of draw a trend line, if they really roll out support parts and help fix the brand, or if it was just a small blip in the flat line that has been HPI's recent past. In the last couple weeks, we've seen a few little rumblings from Redcat, kind of teasing at first kind of like a cartoonish sketch of what looked like a Scout 2 in a topless form. Now it looks like we're starting to see some spy shots of an actual interior that I'm guessing is going to be inside of that topless Scout 2 body. There's been 2 sneak peek pictures released. It looks like it shows a Lexan interior with some injection molded cage work that you can see in the background. Then there's a couple of seats in there. Now the seats definitely look to be 3D printed. If you look closely at the backs of them, they definitely appear to have the striation lines that would lend you to think that they are 3D print. Not sure if that's just a prototype or if that is going to be changed to an injection mold for production or not. Or maybe it won't come with seats and you'll need to 3D print your own or buy your own 3D printed versions. It's yet to be seen, but it does look like there's some movement in that camp, and we should be waiting to see something in the near future. Last week, we talked for just a short minute about something that was going to be coming from Arrma. I was hoping it was going to be a rally car, but really in the end knew that it would be this X-Max competitor, and indeed it was. It basically matched the photo that had been, floating around the internet that got leaked out a little bit too early, and it's exactly what it is. So if you're interested in something large and 8S, they actually labeled it a 1/5 scale. So haven't got to go see one in person yet. I know there's one at RC Country, one of my local hobby shops here. Might swing in there, take a look at it, see how this thing really looks in person. From what I'm told, it's much wider than an X-Max, and it's got an open center diff, so it doesn't, wheelie like an X-Max does, where an X-Max is a little bit more proportioned like a monster truck, and this one's more proportioned like a regular, 8 scale Creighton. It just scaled up, so wider, squattier, and in the end I would have a hard time choosing between the looks of that X-Max and that Creighton. Kind of lean a little bit more towards the looks of that X-Max with slightly better scale proportions, even though it's not anywhere near something that's scale. Last week, John Holmes from Holmes Hobby was in Sacramento, and he took the time and came over, and we ended up shooting a little bit of video here in the studio. You'll be seeing that hopefully in the next coming days. In that video, you'll see us recapping what are our favorites, what we would buy for, less than $400. And then of course, a number of slightly tangential conversations that happen in the middle just because of our history in the RC crawling industry and how long we've been playing with these vehicles. So look for that. It was a fun video to shoot. I am looking forward to getting it out there. Futaba is releasing a new version of the 7PX. This is the 7PXR, and this one actually is a whole new body as well as a new touchscreen with a completely different style of home button on it. They've moved some weight around. They're using things like titanium hardware in it. All of the specs have not been released on it yet, but it's sure to be a top of the line radio with a top of the line price. This was shown at the Tokyo Hobby Show where some of the photos were taken, but since then we're just kind of in a holding pattern waiting for official news. Then transitioning slightly to the full-size world, we saw an unveiling from Tesla called the Cybertruck, and I still am wondering if we're being trolled or not. The stats look crazy. There's a bunch of crazy things about it, but this look, I can't tell if they're serious or I hate to say that it's growing on me slightly, but at the same time, I still feel like we're being trolled. Until I see the first one driving around the streets here, I won't believe it. Let's say you get a fully decked out Cybertruck or a fully decked out F-150. Those are your only two choices. You can only pick one of those. Which one are you choosing? I do not know what my answer would actually be yet. And then lastly, let's get into a little bit of a Coppa update. Now, last week I kind of went over the broad strokes of Coppa and how it could affect YouTube and specifically RC. Now, it's not something to be taken lightly. We still don't have good guidelines, and that's the biggest problem. If you didn't catch the more in-depth version of the Coppa explanation, consider going back. I'll link last week's Coppa video in one of the info cards above. You can go check that out. It does kind of start midway into the video, so you can skip through last week's news if you like and just go right to the Coppa part. And if you didn't watch it, basically what this act is doing is taking and forcing us to put our content into one of two bins. One is made or appealing to children, and the other one is not appealing to children. Now, RC cars resemble toys, which then easily kind of pushes it more towards appealing to children. However, I don't feel like I'm speaking to children when I'm making videos. I feel like I'm speaking with adults, specifically because these vehicles do say 14 plus, and a lot of these vehicles are very expensive, and I'm using LiPo batteries, which should also not be for children to use on their own. I feel like these truly are made for adult videos. That sounds bad. But with these guidelines that we're giving, it really just, there's this massive gray area. Now, there has been a response by the FTC in a post in the last few days, and I have to imagine with the massive number of signatures on the petition on change.org, which again, I'll link in this video, and if you haven't signed it, please consider going and doing that. And then there's also, we're still in the public comment period until December 9th. So if you haven't sent the FTC your public comments about this, again, please consider doing that in a respectable and reasonably worded method. Using abrasive language is not going to help our case. In the update the FTC put out, they did say that they could put in what's called an age gate, which is specifically listed in the Coppa complaint. But the thing is that that age gate would work great. If you would go to watch a video, you would have to be signed in. If you're 13 years of age or older, you could watch the video and interact in the comments and suggested videos as normal. However, if you were under that age, things like liking a video or commenting, those type of things would be turned off. I would be fine with that compromise, even though it seems kind of ridiculous that you would need to be signed in to verify your age to watch this video, but something that was much more heavily adult focused, you wouldn't have to be. It seems odd. However, that simple method of putting an age gate on is not offered to us by YouTube still. So at this point, I still have to take some sort of risk by putting my content into this category where you guys are going to be able to see it. And I'm taking the risk of someone misinterpreting how I categorized my videos and saying that it belongs in this category and that I should have or possibly could have some sort of fine imposed. Again, last week I went into depth on this topic much more. I don't feel like we need to do that whole thing again, but this is a serious problem that could drastically affect the way that you watch YouTube in general. And again, it's not just YouTube. This is going to be something that is going to have effects across the internet on sites that are based in the US, and technically, if they're shown in the US, they should comply with Coppa law. So while some of you may not be in the United States, the fact that YouTube is a US-based company means that every video on the platform then has to comply with Coppa. So myself trying to move videos to Twitch or another platform like that is not going to do me any good. In the last video, I didn't know of anybody who in the RC industry who had videos flagged. Immediately after posting that video, I was made aware of a number of videos by a number of creators in the RC community. Their videos had been flagged. So this isn't something that is just, oh, it could happen. It's going to happen to people in our market. If there isn't some sort of change, we are definitely putting ourselves at a risk by putting our content up for people to watch and having the FTC possibly say that we miscategorized. There's a million videos that have been made on Coppa here recently. If you're interested in learning more about it, absolutely check out, I would suggest some of the actual attorneys that are speaking about this. Creators like myself are doing our best to translate the legalese that all of this was written in and try and convey it to you guys. There's several good attorneys who have taken the law and tried to translate it and give us the best explanation of it. But as several of them have also said themselves, is that this is so vaguely and poorly written in general that the interpretation of this thing is so far up in the air that there's just never going to be one answer to this question, whether or not you're in the right or you're in the wrong. So all I can say is go sign the petition, go send your comments to the FTC, and cross your fingers, hope for the best at this point. I'm not making any plans to change how I do my content at this point. I'm just going to keep moving forward, sincerely believing that my content is properly categorized in the for adults or not for children area. So let's hope for the best. As always, guys, I truly appreciate all of you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Everything that you guys have done to the channel up to this point as it is. As always, hit the like button if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're not already, hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded until January 1st, possibly, or maybe not, who knows. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.